Hey, F you. Excuse me? ZZY, it's the Fuzzy Mike with Kevin Klein. The Fuzzy Mike Podcast.
Hello, and thank you for joining me again on this episode of the Fuzzy Mike. I'm Kevin Klein. Imagine that you're 25 years old. You're featured in the most popular magazine in the entire world. You're a model and an actress, but you're not comfortable in your own skin. You have anxiety, and that's coupled with low-level depression. Deborah Driggs seemingly had it all as a Playboy Playmate in the month of March 1990. But, well, that was just on the surface. As perfect as Deb's life seemed on the outside, it was filled with that same amount of turmoil on the inside. Now, well, Deb's an author and a life coach, and she helps others navigate through the same mental trauma that she successfully overcame. This episode was recorded on April 16th, 2024. In April 1990, I saw Deb on the cover of Playboy. I used to get it for the article. And, well, I don't know, but for some reason, that cover, April 1990, has always been a memorable one to me. To let Deb know that, I started the conversation with an awkward, some might say creepy, poem. Ready? Debs, 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 Debs. You help us through life's flows and ebbs. With advice we get inside your den, which I visit every now and then. You seem to have the perfect life, easy, without any strife. And that's completely understandable because of your perfect smile and, well, mandible. But what I've learned through my research, although it's not so plain to see, underneath your flawless cover, you were just as fucked up as me. Oh, and speaking of covers, I must confess, April 1990, one of the best. A teal tank and a bunny whistle, it made my pulse shoot like a missile. I said one day I'd meet that chick. Then I stopped dreaming and went and played with my word puzzle magazine because I'm a geek. And as time kept passing, my dream became bleak. But alas, here we are, 30 some odd years later, and my joy and admiration, it just couldn't be greater. Because Debs, you're still one of my favorite celebs.
Oh my God. A plus plus plus. I'm crying. Hold on.
Oh, no.
I'm clipped. I don't think I've ever heard something so funny. Oh my God.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, that was good. That had me. You got me. You got me. I enjoyed that. I got a good laugh.
There are only 3 covers in Playboy history that I remember, and that is one of them. That is one of them.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really, really flattering because, I don't know that it's one of the most popular ones, but.
No, I think the one before that is one of the most sought after, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, yeah, that's my issue. And what's interesting about that is that everyone thinks that it's me on the cover with Donald.
Nope.
And it's Brandy Brandt. But since the election and all of that, Brandy is not a fan of Trump, and she's very vocal about it. So she was getting rid of all of her issues on eBay, and I bought them all up. And so she was like, "Are you buying all my issues?" I said, "Yes, they're a collector's item, and it's my issue." So I get more fan mail now today because of Trump being president. Everybody wants my signature in that magazine because it is now a collector's item. So yeah, it was kind of funny. And then when people would say, "Are you on the cover with Donald Trump?" I'd go, "Oh yeah." I would take credit because Brandy does not want to take credit for it. She is completely anti-Trump. And so I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's me."
Have you met him?
Of course. Yeah.
Do you care to share that story?
There's nothing to share. I met him via telephone. We had conversations on the phone, and there was a brief moment where I was contemplating flying to New York to meet him and have a date, but we never did. It was on the cover of Star magazine that he was chasing a playmate. My girlfriend took it a little to the extreme. She was living in New York, and she was telling everybody at the restaurant she worked at, "My girlfriend's dating Trump." And it was not true. I was not dating him. We had a few conversations. And next thing I knew, I was on the cover of Star magazine, Trump chases Playmate. And I thought, oh my God, this is what that's like. So yeah, I met him via telephone.
But if I heard correctly in a previous conversation you had, you were kind of nervous about going to New York and meeting him.
I was. I thought, I don't think I'm right. I was really, here's the thing. I'm a late bloomer. I was really immature in my 20s. I was really, that's when I was kind of growing up, really. And I was growing up fast in an industry that's very tough. And so to have a lot of attention on you when you are now the centerfold and you're now on the cover of a magazine, I had a lot of attention on me. And I didn't really know how to handle it. And, getting a call from Trump is like, what?
How did that centerfold in the covers, the 3 covers, how did it change your life?
Opens doors for sure. It opens doors. I think people are curious, interested. And then if you have some talent behind that, then you will have some success in whatever it is you're pursuing. The sad part is, a lot of the girls, that's their only dream, is to be in Playboy and be on the cover of Playboy. And then that can be really hard. And you see where they can fall into kind of a tragic life, because there's nothing else. I always knew that was kind of the side gig. That was the gig so I could take acting class. That was the gig so I could get better headshots. That was the gig so I would meet other casting directors and be exposed to different things. I never thought of it as the main gig.
Well, because you didn't have any aspirations of being in the magazine. As a matter of fact, I think you tried to turn them down at first.
Well, I did not have any aspirations. What happened was I was with an agency called Mary Webb Davis, and they were my modeling and commercial agent. And she called me, my agent Vivian called me one day, and she said, Playboy is looking for a cover girl for a new magazine called The Lingerie Book. And they would really like to meet you for this book to be on the cover. And my first question to Vivian was, well, is there any nudity involved? And I had already done like a lot of swimsuit campaigns, with OP, Ocean Pacific, and Body Glove, and so I had beach research. I had a lot of little swimsuit companies that I worked for off and on, and so being in a bathing suit was not a big deal. But I did say, is there any nudity involved? She said, I don't think so. This is for the cover. Like, she wasn't even sure. So I go to the audition, and they asked me to take off all my clothes and put a robe on, and they're going to do a Polaroid. And I go, oh, wait, everybody, let's just get through lunch. Yeah, I'm not here for that. I'm here for the audition for the lingerie book. And they said, well, everything we do has some nudity. Now, here's the deal. Back then, they were looking for birthmarks, tattoos, piercings, any type of scar, because they wanted to see what they were working with, because they might have to cover something up, or, it was a big deal back then. Today, it's not. And so I said, well, I'm going to leave my bra and my panties. And I did the Polaroid and I left, and I thought, well, I'm definitely not going to get that. I wasn't, in my mind, I'm not the Playboy type. So I get a call that afternoon from Marilyn Krabowski, who is the chief editor of Playboy, asking me to test to be a Playmate. I was like, what? And so then I was intrigued, because I thought, well, what are they seeing that I'm not seeing? Or, because sometimes we have we don't see ourselves the way other people see us.
Uh-huh.
So I tested, and the rest is history.
So this is primarily a mental health and self-improvement podcast, but because we're talking about Playboy and we're talking about you being a centerfold, and you're very candid about your struggles with mental health and addiction.
Absolutely.
What is more scary, exposing yourself without clothes or being naked emotionally?
Well, probably being naked emotionally. We're just bodies.
Yeah.
We're just bodies at the end of the day. So being naked, it's just a human body. But to be naked emotionally and to be really honest and truthful, it all starts with the brutal honesty of where the problem exists and where the mental illness exists. And whether it's a mental illness, whether it's a personality disorder, whether it's an addiction, they all kind of intertwine. And for me, I've been on a healing journey for a lot of years. And it's more about today getting to the root of where these things can come from, because sometimes you can get sideswiped, especially if you do suffer from some type of mental illness. You can get sideswiped and then go into a complete tailspin and not know how or why you got there. And so I'm on a mission today to make sure I don't ever have that kind of tailspin again, and that I'm clear on when things happen, to just really, the number one rule for me is just to pause and to make sure I have real good sense of the situation. Because, sometimes when we suffer with these types of ailments or whatever you want to call them, I don't really like to label too much, but our perspective can be very distorted. And I'm real careful of that. For a long time, my perception was very distorted. And then because I'd get very confused and anxious, I would drink. And I think drinking was let's just cover all this up and not look at it. But unfortunately, as we all know, that will come to a head at some point in your life. It does explode. Something will happen. There will be an episode of something where, it's like, okay, now we've gone past that limit of just this. It's getting worse.
This, and they're going to say, okay, so Deborah Driggs at 25 is a Playboy centerfold. She turns down a possible date with Donald Trump. She becomes a very successful commercial actress and movie actress, and does a ton of print ads. What possibly could she have been struggling with? Because we are a nation and a society that is based on looks, good looks, and we love celebrity. So, and I get this a lot too, because of my stint on the radio, that people don't understand that it has nothing to do with your success.
It has zero, zero to do. As a matter of fact, everything in life that has been a growing or learning experience for me did not come from success. It came from failure. It came from being rock bottom. It came from having to go, wait a second. I remember being 40. I just turned 60, by the way. And I remember at 40 years old, I had such a mental breakdown because I thought, what happened to my life? Like, I used to be sought out. I used to be, everything came so easy for me in my 20s and 30s. Things just came easy. I mean, I had that kind of energy around me where if I wanted to meet somebody, I met them. If I wanted to go on an audition, I'd call my agent, can I get in on that audition? It was very rare that I didn't get to do what I was trying to do. And so at 40, it was like it all kind of stopped. And I thought, wait, what happened? And I literally had a breakdown because I had to reinvent myself and I didn't know how. And I had never had to do anything to reinvent before. And it was really hard at 40. And I remember I was so in my head about it. And I went into such a black hole and started drinking way too much and not feeling good about myself, and I didn't know how to give myself love and care and all of that. That wasn't really in my peripheral. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't there. And, when they say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And that's kind of what happened. I think when I finally got ready and was exposed to a lot of different things, whether it be rehab or a trauma center or, I've tried everything, or, shamans and healers and yoga retreats. I've done a lot of these things. And the more exposure you get, the more it keeps coming back to, it's you. You have to love yourself. And that's really hard when you don't love yourself, to kind of learn how to do that.
Yeah,
That's what it kept, that for me, that's what it kept coming back to. For everybody's journey is different. And that's why I write about my journey, because maybe somebody will relate to something in my journey and think, oh, that is happening to me now also, or not, or maybe not. And so, it's, you never know. And so sometimes I think, well, maybe if, somebody said, how many people follow your blog? I said, I have no idea, maybe two.
No, it's not two. It's
Maybe two. I don't know. But what matters is that when I do write something that people are called to, or it's something that they feel emotional to, they'll write me and tell me about it. And I love that. I love when people respond to my blogs or my journals, my whatever, because it's really important that we have that connection in this world today, because it's really hard to find connection, I think, in the world we're living in right now.
You can get those newsletters and the blog at Deb's Den, which is DeborahDriggs.com, DeborahDriggs.com. I'm never surprised at that one person relates to something that I say or write. I'm amazed how many, that's what surprises me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not good. I know when something's getting a little close to maybe not being right with myself is when I start to isolate a little bit and I start to kind of hibernate. I'm like, oh, this is when I need to like go for a walk and connect with people or energy or call somebody, or, that isolation part of this, whatever you want to call it, disease or addiction or illness or whatever, there's an isolation component that can be very scary. And that's when I go, oh boy, I'm starting to do. So now I make sure like I have a very clear schedule, and I make sure that I have a few people that I call every single day. I stay connected very close with my kids. There's just certain things that you can do. And I think my website is one of those resources that you can kind of stay connected to. And you can always book a free call with me too. I'm totally open for that.
Yeah, Deb's a life coach.
Yeah, I am.
So explain what a life coach is.
Well, I like to explain it like this, because a lot of people ask me, well, what's the difference between a life coach and a therapist? And I go, well, do you want to rehash your past, or do you want to get to the point?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Therapy is, and believe me, I love therapy. I spent a week in Nashville in Tennessee at a place called Onsite, where it is intense therapy. I love therapy. I love therapists. I love counselors. So I am a huge fan. But life coaching is a little bit different in that I use a lot of my experiences as examples and stories to kind of shift people's perceptions of what they're looking at, because sometimes you need a second person to be kind of a mentor or a guide. And you want to choose somebody that has what you're looking for. And if that coach has the life and what you're looking for, then that's a good match right there. I try not to take advice from people that they don't have really the life that I'm looking for, or the financial life, or the spiritual life, or the relationship life. There's a lot of things. I wouldn't go get relationship advice from somebody who's struggling with relationships.
Right.
And I think so as a life coach, you really want to be picky, because there's so many now. But we also live in a time where we don't have enough. We have a real need for mentors and coaches. And so, I mean, I know I did a call with a gentleman about 6 months ago, and he called me, and it was a complimentary call. So he didn't have the money to hire me, and that's fine. And I said, by the way, because I'm not about the money. So I said, if you need to talk about this again, I'll give you one more, free session. But he said, no, you helped me immensely in just this one call. And that for me is like gold.
Sure.
If you can help somebody quickly get to a solution and all of that, I think it's important. I think therapy is important to kind of go through and reset the past maybe, and kind of go, well, maybe I was looking at my past wrong. But what I do is really like take a situation that you're struggling with and try to come up with a solution for it.
Yeah, I've never quite understood, because I've gone to psychiatrists and therapists for, well, since 1995. So do the math.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've
And
never
so have
understood.
I. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But why do we have to go find out the source of our trauma? I know the source of my trauma. You know, I know it. So now I got to know how to get through that. You know,
Now you need to know how to recognize the patterns that come up when that trauma is irritated.
Mm-hmm.
And because, we can go into a relationship bringing all of that trauma, not knowing, and we bring it in, and then we kind of become like an attachment instead of love. It's more like we're attaching and not understanding that we're bringing all of this trauma. And I know for me, it was like, just please, everybody love me, love me, love me. I was so wanting to be loved, where really, that's what I'm saying. It finally came around that, yeah, you need to love yourself. How about that? How about we start there?
Why do so many people with low self-esteem and need for attention go into the entertainment industry? And because we're so scrutinized, and I hate criticism. I mean, constructive or not, I hate when somebody points the finger at me. But I mean, that's the career I chose.
Well, I think there might be a validation component, like, oh, see, I made it, and you feel validated. But like we said earlier, success is not going to do that. Cars, money, fame, fortune, relationship, I don't care what it is, it's not going to fix that insecurity or that low self-esteem. It's not. You're gonna have to figure out how to come up with the self-love component. And I know it's interesting because when I look back on my past and all of the auditions and all of the things that I worked on, and there is that validation of like, how many people actually go on an audition and book a job? When you look at those statistics, how many people actually have their SAG card? How many people actually have an agent? There's like, and those things are really hard to do. And even with all of that success that I had, I didn't feel good about myself. So I don't know why. I don't know why. I do know that for me, I loved performing. And I think that came from my ice skating background and the fact that I was always in dance classes, and I was always performing and making up shows as a kid. So I liked the attention of performing. So, but I just didn't have the self-esteem to go with it.
Yeah. I think that's part of it, is that because we don't have a high self-esteem, that we go into this thinking that adoration is going to boost our own self-esteem. And it doesn't. It doesn't, because like you said, it comes from us. It doesn't come from exterior. It's got to come from internal.
Yeah. Nothing comes from external.
Yeah.
It's as a matter of fact, even little things that I do now, I realize that the question I ask before I do anything is, how's this going to make me feel? Why am I doing this? I kind of go through a circle of questions to make sure that I'm not in my ego, that it is coming from my heart. And and if it doesn't feel like it's a heart thing, then I sometimes don't want to do it. And you can get also, the, imposter syndrome, like, okay, well, am I really living up to this? But I find that the more that I write and the more that I do this, it helps me to stay on track. Really, you guys are all helping me.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you with your life coaching sessions. How much is it helping you on a personal level, helping others?
So much.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, the number one thing that I try to stay on and aligned with is contribution. And how am I contributing? How am I giving back? What ways am I helping? How am I serving? When you stay on that, if you're serving others, you're so off yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I'm off myself, the better my life is. Really. Yeah. I don't need to focus on this, and I can obsess because that's part of the thing, right? So yeah, of course it helps me tremendously when I'm discussing something with somebody, and And it's like, it's so beautiful because it's not about me. It's
So
about them.
is the term self-love kind of a misnomer? Because self-love sounds so selfish, and you're saying you don't like to put it on yourself. Explain that term, please.
Well, I wrote a chapter in a book called My 2 Cents on Self-Love, and it is not selfish. It's really, think about this. The more you are loving yourself, the more love I think you have to give to others. And I start the day every day with good morning. I love you. I go through gratitude lists from head to toe. I love my scalp. I love my forehead. I love my nose. I'm grateful for my cheeks. I'm grateful for my fingers because I can write. I go through a whole kind of series of like how much I just love and appreciate this shell of a body that I've been given that does a lot of work for me that I don't even know what's going on. It's breathing for me without me having to ask it to. I mean, I go through a whole thing of self-love and bringing that energy in. And I don't think it's selfish to be able to say to people, today is going to be a quiet day for me. I'm going to give myself, I'm going to take a bath and I'm going to read. And I just want to have quiet time. And I'll be back with you tomorrow. I think when you're very clear about stuff like that, it's not selfish. I think it's beautiful to see that in relationships when people are able to say, I'm having a really bad day. Could you just give me space?
Yeah.
I think that is self-love.
Okay.
It's not about going shopping and buying a new outfit. It's not about putting makeup on. It's not those things. It's the emotional self-love. It's being a light for other people. When you're happy with what's going on here, it's so contagious. Everybody around you feels it. They want to be around you. They like that energy. I know I
Sure.
do. I
Oh, yeah.
appreciate it. I have a few people in my life that, bless their hearts, their energy is so dark and they're suffering, and it's hard to be around them because they major in minor things, and they look at everything with very slow, small tunnel vision, and it's hard, especially in business, when you're working closely with somebody who is very dark,
Sure.
and you're just kind of, I get fascinated now. I'm like, wow, that is so fascinating that person just got so blown up over something so
Trivial.
trivial.
Yeah.
And they say when you squeeze an orange juice comes out. When you squeeze a human, and you push them a little bit and you see what comes out, you just wonder, God, they're so knotted up. Even the way they walk and all of that. I work around a lot of people like that. It's really fascinating.
But to get to that point where you push somebody, you have to tell them the truth and they have to want to accept the truth. So, as a life coach, how do you get them to realize that?
Well, it's not my job. So unless somebody's hiring me to, if they really want that advice or that different perspective, it's not my job. So when I see people like that, I'm more fascinated and curious about what's really pushing their buttons. I would never say something to somebody that's not looking to be coached, because that could really set them off. But I do find behavior fascinating today, really fascinating. Um,
How have you seen
I
behavior change since the advent of the internet?
like I was talking about earlier, I think it's more isolating. I think people
Hmm.
sit behind screens and we don't know who's typing away, and sometimes people have accounts where it's not really them and they're typing away, and there's some negative energy. So we have to be really careful. A lot of that criticism out there is really not even worth our time. Who are, these people that are, they're like trolls. The internet is very interesting. People have way more opinion sitting behind a computer commenting on stuff that's what I call brain dead, it's like, it's not, you're not growing. It's just brain dead behavior. Like, you're just commenting on stuff online behind a screen and you're not. So that there's a lot of that with the internet, I think, where you're
Yeah,
isolated and you have like, all of a sudden you have this confidence to like have a personality online. But if you meet that person and if you meet that person in person, I'm telling you, it's going to be a whole different ball game.
I have a rule that if you would never say it to somebody's face, you cannot write it.
No,
You can't.
no, you can't.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in now, is that people feel really justified to write all this stuff online. And then I guarantee you, like I said, if you met them in person, they'd be like, oh, like, they would, it's like they're a little mouse. So, but they're like this big tiger online. So the internet is a very funny thing. I don't spend a lot of time on any type of social media, although I am obsessed with cooking TikToks, because I'm teaching myself now finally how to cook. And so I'm obsessed with watching cooking videos. But as far as everything else, I don't spend a lot of time. I have people that post on my social media and run my social media for me. And because I don't want to spend that time. For me, I know I'm losing brain cells every time I go on.
Well, it can be a time suck, and there are so many more constructive ways to spend your time than going through and finding out what people are saying out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Uh,
so there's no growth unless you're educating yourself somehow, or you're in some type of group that's educating you, or there's just no growth. It's fun to see family and friends sometimes,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But again, I don't need to see everybody's home birth of their baby. And I don't need to see pictures of funerals, and that it's gotten out of hand.
Hmm?
It's not, there's a little bit of a etiquette that's missing. We don't need to see everything.
Well, and I think that makes.
I watched somebody post live, somebody giving a eulogy at a funeral, like just posting
Oh,
it, like, and I literally, and I so wanted to write this person and say, boy, we've crossed the line. Like, I don't need to see a live video of somebody giving a eulogy at a funeral. I think there's etiquette that needs, we've lost manners.
oh, big time.
We've lost manners, and there's no etiquette
Well,
with social media.
hey, look
Yeah.
at me. I'm going to post this so I can get clicks and likes and stuff. And I think it makes your job, and I'll put myself in here because I'm trying to help people too. I think it makes it harder because people don't want to help people anymore.
Yeah.
People want to help
Yeah.
themselves, but they don't want to help
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely.
The most rewarding thing that my wife and I ever have done is we created a nonprofit for pediatric cancer kids. And I mean, that,
I saw that video of you raising money, and was it in Alaska?
yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
What a great.
well, thanks for watching
That
that.
was yeah, that looks so amazing. I love stuff like that.
Well, you're an
So
adventure racer. You do
I
adventure
am.
races.
I
Yeah.
love adventure. I love stuff like that.
What's the
So
gnarliest thing you've ever done in an adventure race?
gosh, there are a couple things, but they had us do a lot of things in adventure racing. Is a lot about the surprise tasks.
Hmm.
And a lot of those surprise things that they put in a race are really like from the military. So I remember we got out of the kayak and they made us swim under the muddy, those wires that the
Yeah.
Marine, they swim under.
Uh-huh.
You can't get it. And it was so like a football field. And we were in the mud, and I was like, okay, what is this? And it was freezing cold. And it was like we already were freezing from the kayak because they made us swim to the kayaks. It was a night race. We were freezing in the kayak. And then I remember we got out of the kayak and our coach was like, run, because to warm us up. So, and it's hard to run when you're like shivering. And
Oh, yeah.
so we were running, and the next thing we had to do was go in the mud. So that was probably the gnarliest because it was just the temperature was freezing.
Was there anything that you were fearful of when you were doing an adventure race?
Yeah,
How do you
heights.
get over that? How do you get over it?
Well, when you're with a team, it's if I was solo, I probably wouldn't have gotten through a lot of those things. But when you're with a team, I raced with two other girls, you're pumped up. So we had to climb a grease wall. We had to climb a wall with a rope. Just anything with heights for me always kind of freaked me out a little bit.
What in life, what freaks you out, or what did freak you out? Because I know you had bouts of paranoia.
I do. I'm, gosh, what freaks me out now? Gosh, this is a good question. Probably bugs.
Yeah.
I don't like bugs. They belong outside. So when I see one in the house, I'm like, oh, that kind of freaks me out a little bit. But, I've kind of gotten good with that too. Like I'll just get a tissue and try to help it get back outside. And I used to kill. I said like go for the kill.
Yeah.
But I don't do that anymore. I try to be more like karmically
That's right.
aware of like putting them back in their environment. Um, flying kind of freaks me out a little bit. Now I had a little episode the last time I flied where we had an emergency landing. So
Ooh.
now I'm a little freaked out by that, even though I like to travel.
Your 1990 Miss March 1990 data sheet. I don't know if you remember this, but it asks you your biggest fear. And at the time, at 25 years of age, you said,
I know what it was.
What?
Being trapped in an elevator with another actor.
Yes. Why? Why is that? Why was that?
Because of the egos, because of the total egos. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like just the conversation itself would be just like, oh my God.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is,
I
yeah,
don't know. Who knows what I was thinking at the time? Because maybe there was something that, that was relevant to that. But I could just, imagine what that would be like for hours being trapped with somebody, and all you talked about was like that kind of stuff.
it says that your turnoffs then were a date planned to the last minute. So you like spontaneity.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about spontaneity?
I like the confidence of that. I like if the person that I'm dating surprises me with something unusual, like, we're not just going to go to dinner, we're going to go stop and look at art or something on the way. Like just something spontaneous that shows confidence that they plan something in advance. They put some thought into it. I think that is the meaning behind that, like there's something really beautiful about that.
How do we grow our own confidence? I mean, that gets back to self-love and it gets back to self-empowerment and healing. How do we grow our own confidence?
By serving others.
But then
by doing things for other people and by
how do you not get taken advantage of?
Good question. I think, it comes with your own boundaries and knowing the reasons why you're doing something. Because if you're doing it for the wrong reason, then obviously you're going to have resentment and you will feel taken advantage of. But if you're doing it for the right reasons, it's very hard to be taken advantage of.
So can you say
people,
no?
People can be, not appreciative, and that's okay. That's on them. I think that just comes with growth of knowing that it's not about you. That's on them.
Can you serve people and help people by saying no?
Absolutely.
Really? How?
No is a complete sentence, because not everything is a yes. Not everything is meant to be a yes. And a lot of times people can cross boundaries and ask too much of people. And I think it's okay to say that doesn't feel okay with me, or that doesn't feel aligned with me. So no, I can't do that.
Do you feel guilty after that?
No.
Really?
No.
Because I'm the ultimate yes person,
Yeah. That's where most people who are get resentments, because they do so much and then they're expecting something in return. And really, the whole thing is to, expectations lead to resentment. So really just to stay in gratitude and know that if I say yes, I don't care what the outcome is.
Yeah.
But to go back to how to build self-confidence, I think it's consistency. Self-confidence isn't something that just happens. I think it's consistency of the little things that we do, the little consistent habits that we do every day build confidence. So I know there's so many beautiful stories out there, whether it's weight loss or people who have survived some terminal illness. It's all those little steps that they took to build the confidence to, somebody who was obese that now runs marathons. They weren't confident when they were obese, but they took little steps to build habits that then create confidence, because you start to build confidence when you start having a pattern and you start having consistency. I know for me, when I started to feel a little bit more confident about my life was, when I started creating routines that made me feel good about my life, that make you feel secure and happy and all those beautiful words. It's based on what you're doing. And if you're doing things that are not very self-esteemed, if you're getting up and just eating a big breakfast without even thinking about what it's doing to your body, and you're slipping down coffee, and you're not working out, and you're, hungover, and maybe you're in a bad relationship, these are things that will not build self-confidence.
True.
But if you get up and you drink, your water with lemon, and you have your ginger tea, and you're grateful for the relationships that are in your life, these little things build the confidence.
Well, you talked about consistency, and I know you were very impressed and enthralled with my cheesy little poem at the beginning. But I think that I think that this compliment is going to resonate with you more. I was listening to a conversation you did. It was 2 a.m. last night, but this was a while back that you had done the conversation, and you were talking more on the order of acting. And I'm going to use this for my life, and especially for this podcast. You said that 80% is showing up and standing in line continuously. 20% is talent.
I use that to this day. It's
that is 100% brilliant.
True.
Yeah.
It is 100% true. And I tell this, all the time when anybody asks me advice, I go, look, here's the deal. 80% of anything, I don't care what you're doing. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a writer, if you're coaching, if you're dancing, if you're acting, is showing up. Just show up. Because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to run into. You never know the timing of something. But if you're not showing up, your chances are way lower than the person that's showing up all the time and just kind of keeping their spot. And 20% is talent.
Yeah.
And we can see that, in the world. If you look at people that are so consistent, they're not the most talented people in the world. We say this all the time about actors or influencers or whatever. Like there's a lot of people out there, but they just keep showing up.
Yeah.
No matter what, they just keep showing up. They keep doing the deal. So yeah, I believe that 100%. I also think that no is really something to embrace. I don't think it's something to completely fall apart. Oh my God, they said no. Like rejection. I think no is like, okay, great. And take it as a maybe, because that no can sometimes turn into a yes. I think people fall apart too quickly on a no.
Yeah, you're on record as saying no doesn't mean no.
It doesn't. It means maybe. It does. And it's happened too many times in my life where people originally said no to me, and then 2 years later they were my client. So, I have a huge history in the life insurance world.
Yeah, you were like one of the top earners in the country for 3 years in a row.
Yeah. So I have to say that I, talk about getting rejected quite often. And I would sit in meetings and to this day, because I still, that is my main source of income. I still work in insurance. So, but some people will say to me in the office environment, they'll dwell on the no's. And I'll go, well, let's look at how many people said yes this week. Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Why are we focusing on the no's? Those no's are going to come back around when they realize there's nothing else to do but to come back to us.
But that's human.
It goes for everything in life. So
it's human nature, though.
Yes. And by the way, I think also I believe in energy very much so. So I believe sometimes I'm being guided by people saying no. Maybe there's a reason why I'm not supposed to do business with that person. So I don't take everything so personally, when I was in my acting days, those no's could be very brutal. And I think that's where I got the lesson that, it actually wasn't brutal, and the way I was looking at it, my perspective was off. It was just going, it was like that was the time to go, okay, next, what's the next one? Because listen, you could do 100 auditions and maybe land one job. Those are the numbers. So if you're going to get messed up after 99 auditions and not really focus on the one job that you get, you're really missing out on some really good stuff there.
Well, here's a story that I heard from you in a previous interview, and I love this because you and I are of this similar mindset, and it's about your Charles in Charge audition. Remember that story?
Oh, I know it well. To this day, I use it all the time.
Please share.
So I do admissions for an acting school today. It's kind of like, that's my fun job that I love to do. And I tell this story all the time because my job is I interview people, and because I'm a life coach, I can help guide people to understand what's preventing them from getting their dream. And so I use this story all the time because what had happened was I was a working actress, and I had a lot of commercials and a lot of success. And I went into audition for Charles in Charge for the lead part for Scotty Baio's girlfriend. And the casting director's name was Melvin at Universal. And I go in and I'm dressed perfectly for the part. I go in, he and I talk. I'm a bubbly 25-year-old. And he says, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yes." And we start to read. And he stopped me and he goes, "Come sit down." And I was like, "What?" Nobody had ever stopped me in an audition. And I sat down and he said, "Deborah, I would have hired you the minute you walked in the door. You are exactly what I'm looking for, but girl, you need to learn how to act." And I smartly said to him, "Where do you suggest I go?" And he said, "Go study with Joanne Barron." I was in her class, like literally in the school the next week. Here's the ironic part of the story. I now work for that studio that I studied acting at, and that's where I do the admissions for Barron Brown.
But how many people would have heard Melvin say that and said, "Okay, yeah, this isn't my career. I'm not cut out for this." But you used it as motivation.
Oh no, because he was very, I heard this. This is what I heard. "I would have hired you for the part." Okay. When I heard that, I thought, okay, I'm on to something. I'm not completely, but I am missing I'm a little green. So I was great at commercials, and I was great at getting like one line here and one line there. And I did this TV movie called Class at Sea. And I did all these really fun things that were easy and great, but this was a lead part. And the fact that he said, "I would have hired you," that's what I heard. I didn't hear "you suck." I heard, "I would have hired you, but you need to get some acting." And thank God something in me said, "Where do you suggest I go?" And he said, "Go study with Joanne Barron." And that's all. I didn't need to hear anything else. It was like I was in the school the next day. Like no grass grew for me. It was like, okay, this is what I want. And I really studied hard for 2 years. And believe me, my auditions completely changed when I started training really well.
And people don't realize how hard acting is. It is not easy.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
I go to master classes all the time at our studio, and I watch actors who are in first and second year. And I just sit there and think, wow, I forgot, how hard this is.
Can you share some of the roles that you auditioned for that you said you were close to getting, but in the end didn't?
Yeah, of course. I auditioned for a movie. I auditioned for Sean Penn for The Crossing Guard.
Okay.
And they went with a completely different look. I actually read with Gary Oldman for that part. And this is at that moment, I'll tell you a little story about that.
Please.
That was the moment that I knew I wasn't giving this my all, because I showed up at this audition with the sides, and I didn't have them memorized, and I was going to read off the paper. And Gary Oldman had a big monologue, Jack Nicholson. He was reading for Jack Nicholson's part. And he did this for Sean Penn. He came in and read with all the actors. And he had the whole thing memorized as if he was on set shooting. And I literally wasn't in the audition. I was watching him. And I was like, oh boy, this is now I've crossed over to this is a different way that I need to be in this business, which is way more prepared. I was not prepared. I should have had coaching on this audition. And I remember driving home thinking, I don't know if I have what it takes to really do this, because if Gary Oldman shows up to just read with actors with this thing, hopefully, like he was acting every take. And I was
Wow.
like, I was blown away by that audition, just blown away. And then there was a time I read with Billy Crystal, and I got really close to being, he actually called me in. He called me in. He wanted to meet me. I think this was when he was with Castle Rock. This one's going to be hard for me to remember what it was for, but I went in and met with him, and I didn't have to read. He was looking for a certain type, and I guess I wasn't the type. So I met Billy Crystal. Um, who else did I read for? I read for Farrah Fawcett and Ryan O'Neal. They had a show back in the early 90s. I don't think it lasted very long, but that was another audition that I was not prepared for.
Well, I think you weren't prepared for that because you said that Farrah Fawcett was just so immaculate looking.
She's so gorgeous. She is so gorgeous. I mean, what a beautiful, beautiful lady. I actually ran into her years later. I was having dinner with an agent at a restaurant, and she was sitting at the table next to us, and she came over, and I was like in awe because she was older than me and looked amazing. And I just thought, my God, she's so gorgeous.
And there was another celebrity that, this isn't about an audition. This was actually when you were a VJ on Playboy Rocks. Your very first interview kind of was a big deal.
Oh, it was a huge deal. Oh my God. I had talk about being nervous. This is a man that I loved all his music, and I grew up listening to. So yeah, Barry White. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Yeah, that was really like, that was my very first show, I think.
Very
Yeah.
first, yeah.
I was so green. I really didn't come into my own until, about 6 or 7 shows in. I started coming into myself with that. That's a hard gig, when you have to improvise and ad lib and really play off people. And then I thought, well, this is kind of Meisner. This is the training that I'm doing with acting. So I kind of started using it and came into my own. I actually really enjoyed doing Hot Rocks quite a bit.
Yeah. What other musicians were you able to talk to and get close with?
Marilyn Manson was one that
Wow.
was on. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, they came out with some really crazy song. Yeah, there's just so many. And then, I got to be in a lot of music videos. I wish, that is the one regret. If somebody said, what regret? I wish I would have kept track of all the music videos, and I wish I would have kept all those Polaroids and all that memorabilia, because, it was way before the internet. And so a lot of them, I just don't remember the bands or who it was, but like there was one rock band where I was in a swing, and they put a lot of extensions in my hair. So my hair was like really, really long, and I don't remember the band, and I have the memories. And I remember doing another music video where all of us playmates were on stage for, I don't know who it was. It could, I mean, who knows? Like, I just don't know. My memory's not as good. And, I wish I would have kept track of all of that, because
Sure.
those were fun times.
Can we do some rapid fire questions?
Yes. Let's
Okay.
change the energy.
Tell me about 90 days. Why is 90 days a magic number?
Well, in my experience, 30 days is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of flushing stuff out and kind of getting clear. And 60 days is when we start feeling really good. And 90 days is when the decisions can start kind of coming, and being made for anything that you're suffering with. So for me, 90 days is the benchmark. It's really important. I see people get 30 days on something, and then they go back because they start to feel comfortable, and they think, oh, I'm okay. And then they go back to old patterns, and it just creeps up again. But if you get to that 60-day mark where you start to feel even better, then I think 90 days is like, it's kind of set in stone. Like, it's like, okay, this is the deal. If you can do it for 30, you can do it for 60. If you can do it for 60, you can do it for 90.
But you have a 90-day program that you've unveiled. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So basically what it is I take people through 90 days of clearing out just everything. And you'll be surprised what you can do in 30 days. But the 30 days is kind of like getting rid of all the cobwebs,
It's like a detox.
it's a detox, a big time detox, because if you take a lot of stuff away, it's about taking away things that are not serving and adding things that are. Okay.
Mhm.
So if you take away all the things that are not serving you and your gut knows what those things are, you're only lying to yourself if you say, well, smoking's not bothering me. That's a lie. All of these things affect you. Vaping, smoking, sex, shopping, drinking, drugs, sleeping pills, gambling, all of these things, even traveling, because that's a running component. When people get uncomfortable, they like book a trip. Let's just move away from this. So if you take all that away, and then you add in things like yoga and walking and quiet and silence, and you remove anybody or anything that's not serving you and add in things that are, you're going to have a shell shock experience. You are going to detox, and most people won't get through the 30 days.
How do you get somebody who's doing a 90-day program with you? How do you get them to not look at 90 days? And how do you get them to look at day 1 and then day 2?
That's a great question. So it's like anything in life. I tell people, if you're already future tripping on what it's going to look like in 90 days, then you're going to miss all the beautiful things that are going to happen as we go. It's like steps, you can't get to the top of the mountain without taking all the steps. So we start day 1 and that's it. Here's what we're going to do day 1. We're going to get out a journal. We're going to start writing everything that we're feeling, because I guarantee you, when we do get to day 90, that journal is going to look very different. And you're going to want to read everything that happens. We're going to organize a little bit life and set kind of a schedule. So this is like the first couple weeks, a lot of times people do this because they're really heartbroken and they don't know how to clear that energy from being heartbroken, and they keep obsessing and they keep doing the same thing over and over. They keep checking social media. They keep texting. They keep getting the texting thing. They do all these patterns that are making them feel worse. So if they can get through the first couple of days of not doing that and see that nothing's going to fall out, we're all going to be okay. But there's something that has to change with those patterns the first couple of weeks. And then as we get into the 60-day, we start adding things that they can do to keep the momentum. And then 90 days, it's just incorporating all, that third month is just incorporating everything. Now I don't think they're thinking too much about the texting and the negative and all that, because they're feeling too good.
Sure.
When you start feeling good, you don't want to do those things.
Therapy, we talk about our past. Now you and I are talking about don't get so hung up on the future. If we all lived in the present, how much better would our lives be?
It's the hardest thing to do.
Exactly.
It really is. It's the hardest thing to do, because we have this old machine up here that wants to figure everything out and wants to make sense of everything. And so we have to sometimes say, okay, we don't need to do that right now, because right now I'm doing a podcast. I'm here with Kevin Kline, who's like the actor Kevin Kline, and we're having a funny conversation and we're talking. Like, I just have to stay where I am. And a good exercise for being in the moment is just like, where am I?
I was going to ask you, how many times have you asked yourself that today? Where am I?
Where am I? What am I doing? Where are my feet? They're not over there, what I'm thinking about. They're here. This is where I am. It's very, the future tripping too is what can lead people to depression, because they try to get somewhere they can't get because they don't know how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're future tripping and you don't know how to get there, it can cause anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
So when you're staying put and just dealing with what you have to deal with today, sometimes it's good to write it out. Okay, today I only have to do this, 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 and this to have a successful day. I think we put too much on our plate in a 24-hour period. And when we do that, it's too overwhelming. And most people will just not do anything.
Yeah. One of my previous guests was talking, he's a mental performance coach. and Bobby Sexton, he was telling me that the brain doesn't like change. The brain, if it was up to the brain, we would sleep all day long and stay in bed because it's a protective thing. So yeah, what you just
Believe
said.
me, I've done that. I have done that where I've just pulled the covers over my head and thought, you know what? It's all good right here. I'll just stay right here for a while. I used to have a TV in my room and I used to just binge watch Netflix or whatever. And then I was like, okay, this is one of those times where you got to get out of bed and go for a walk. But I have done that where I just feel safe to be in my space, in my environment. And sometimes I have those days where that's all she's doing today. She's staying in bed. Get the popcorn, people, because it's one of those days, you know. But those don't happen very often anymore. Thing that can cause low self-esteem and not a lot of confidence, a lot of insecurity, is when you obsess over things outside of yourself. Meaning, you know, if you're obsessing about someone or something and you're constantly obsessing about that thing, it causes insecurity in your body. And so you have to look at that very carefully and understand, well, why am I looking at this? Why am I obsessing over this? You know, figure out what your part is in it, because there's a lot of people that do that, and by the way, I'm guilty of it. So that's why I talk about it, because I remember, you know, I would just obsess over the silliest things. And then, you know, like if I look back now, I'm like, what a waste of time, you know? And also it's only affecting me. It's not affecting them.
Right.
So if somebody's obsessing over a person, place, or thing, it's only affecting them, not what they're obsessing over.
So what if you have a goal and you start obsessing about that goal?
That's different.
Okay. How so?
That's you, because it's for you.
Oh, okay.
It's your goal. It has to do with you. It's about you internally. I'm talking about obsessing over a person, place, or thing that's like, I don't like that person, you know, or that thing, or that job, or when you obsess over those things, it's only affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing you down and it's lowering your self-confidence. It's making you insecure. And that's all you're going to keep seeing, by the way, is stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, negativity is far more easier to
contagious, right? So you
contagious.
Have to be very careful.
Yeah. And
I always tell people when they're in a negative situation, I go, please hurry home and take an Epsom salt bath. Just get that energy off of you.
Yeah.
Because it's contagious.
Okay. True or false questions here. Pamela Anderson was your roommate?
True.
Get out.
Absolutely.
I know that she was on the cover the month before you did your centerfold spread. What is she like?
Just a sweetheart. Sweetheart. I only have wonderful things to say about her. She is a doll. We met in Chicago. She flew in from Canada, I believe, and I flew in from LA. She was just getting involved with Playboy and she was looking for a place to live. And I said, well, that's a good timing. My roommate just moved out if you're interested. So there were 3 girls in North Hollywood and she took the one girl that moved out. She took her her room in our apartment, and we lived together in North Hollywood.
How cool.
Yeah. I always tell people it was a who's who of who was coming and going in our apartment, you know, from Mario Van Peebles, Scotty Baio, Sean Penn, Charlie Sheen. I mean, we had the gamut of people that we were running with.
Your favorite comedy of all time is A Fish Called Wanda?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, you made mention to Kevin, the actor. He's my uncle, you know.
No, he's not.
That's my dad's brother.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
I cannot take it. Oh, my God. Yeah, he's one of my all-time favorite actors.
He's hilarious.
Disappointed. My God. Everything he did in that movie, I was like, he is so good. Everything don't call me stupid.
Yeah.
Everything he did. I was like, yeah, best. He was the best.
You know,
I love everything he did. Even French Kiss, a silly movie that he did with
Meg Ryan.
Meg Ryan and Timothy Hutton. I love that movie.
My wife loves that movie too. You know who he beat? He won the Academy Award for A Fish Called Wanda. He beat out Alec Guinness and Martin Landau.
Yeah, he was that good. It was one of the best roles I'd seen. And I remember thinking, oh my God, he is just so good. Because you believed he was an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
You just believed he was so dumb. And Jamie Lee Curtis, the two of them. I mean, it was just such a, all-time favorite movie.
And did you really audition for Dirty Dancing?
I did. I absolutely did. I spent an entire day. I went in first. I went through the whole dance audition. It was a whole day where they were having us do different dances, and then people were being let go, let go, let go. And I got to the final audition, and they actually came to me and said, "We want you to come and read." And I said, "Well, I've never acted." This was literally before I even did anything. It was like 1986, I think I auditioned for Dirty Dancing. And they had me read for the scene where they're in the bedroom. That was the scene I read, where she asks him, "Why you do this? How many women have there been?" or something.
No, I remember it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that was my very first film audition. Yeah. True.
So it could have gone radically different, and we could be saying nobody puts Deborah in the corner.
That's it. Nobody puts Debs in the corner.
You are a delight. I am so glad that we had this time. You've taught me a lot about my own self-growth. And where do you want me to direct our listeners? DeborahDriggs.com.
Perfect. And where I think everyone's doing the most stuff is Instagram. So you can follow me on Instagram, follow my journey there. I am going to be going on a real radical health wellness journey this year, and I'm going to be writing about it quite a bit. And I'm going to be telling everybody what I'm doing. So if you're interested in health and wellness, that's kind of the thing that I'm doing right now. And yes, my website has a lot of information, which is my name, DeborahDriggs.com. And by the way, if you subscribe to my my blog, my weekly blog, I will tell me that you heard me on Kevin Kline's show, and I will send you a copy of Son of a Basque, the book that I did.
Which is about your grandfather.
It's about my grandfather, and it's about family, the importance of family history, and it shows a lot of trauma that went down on just one grandparent that I know of. And that really put me on another healing journey, because I thought, wow, that's just one grandparent, and a lot of the stuff in the book I didn't know. And if imagine all the stuff, if you knew that your grandparents went through, that all is part of our DNA. And I was very fascinated, so I wanted to make sure the book got published. So yes, I will send you a signed copy of that book.
Do you think that your go-getter attitude is from your grandfather, who was an immigrant and really had to struggle to make it here?
I absolutely think it absolutely plays a huge part, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I really hope the book, I'm shopping it right now to have it made into a film, because I think it's a really great story. And it's unique because it's Son of a Basque, and he's from the Basque country, and he was very proud of his Basque genes. But I don't know a lot about the Basque people, but just from what I do know, and the people, when I was doing research for the book, what a fascinating, it's the oldest language in the world, the Basque language.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's a very fascinating culture. And so I'm very excited. At some point, I want to go do that Camino de Santiago, that trail in Spain.
Okay.
You walk, because I love to walk. So I thought that'd be a fun trail for me to do, because it goes through the Basque country.
What's stopping you?
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, but let me just say, Kevin, thank you so much for having me and honoring me with this time and sharing my story and writing me a poem. Thank you so much. I'm so privileged to be here today and honored. So
clearly, as I'm sure you no doubt heard the same thing I did, had Debs and I met in 1990, 6 years before I got married, I would have had the same shot at Debs then that I have with her now as a married man. None. But as her Playboy cover is memorable for me, I'm thinking this conversation might just very well be memorable for her. I hope you not only enjoyed this episode, but that you also found it informative, and that you heard something that you can use in your own journey to personal growth and self-acceptance. And remember, if you reach out to Debs through her website, Deborah Driggs, DeborahDriggs.com, and you mentioned that you heard her here on the Fuzzy Mike with Kevin Kline, she's going to send you a signed copy of her latest book, Son of a Basque. My thanks to Debs for joining me and for being such a great sport about my silliness. And thank you for listening. If you'd be so kind as to leave a review, it's something as simple as a star rating, nothing fancy. I would greatly appreciate that. And likes and shares, follows, subscriptions, highly encouraged, obviously. As I mentioned in my previous episode, with audience growth comes show growth, where we can hear stories and learn life lessons from even more experts and fascinating people like Debs. The Fuzzy Mike is hosted and produced by Kevin Kline. Production elements by Zach Sheesh at the Radio Farm. Social media director is Trish Klein. For a weekly dose of hiccup-inducing laughter, check out the Tuttle and Klein podcast. It's the podcast I co-host with my longtime radio partner of 25 years, Tim Tuttle. We give you new episodes every Wednesday. Now, join me next Tuesday for another episode of the Fuzzy Mike. We're going to meet a woman who left her Amish community at the age of 17 for a life that goes against everything her family and her teachings believed in. And it led her down a dark and very sinister path. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful. See you next Tuesday.
That's it for the Fuzzy Mike. Thank you. The Fuzzy Mike with Kevin Kline. Fuzzy Mike.